Welcome to the Perpetual Growth Podcast with Zach Palmer, the show where we explore the strategies, insights, and stories that empower you to grow your business, strengthen your relationships, and elevate your health. Because growth isn't just about what you achieve, it's about who you become along the way. Now, today, I am thrilled to welcome a good friend of mine, Tiffany Alexander. Tiffany embarked on her real estate investing journey in 2006 and since has employed a wide range of strategies, including short sales, tax liens, and flipping multifamily properties. However, over the past 7 years, her focus has shifted primarily to promissory notes investing. Now, Tiffany specializes in buying notes as investments and employing specialized investment strategies to maximize gains for herself and her clients. She has assisted over 1,000 people in the real estate field to identify and achieve their investment objectives through real estate and note investing. So let's dive in and take another step on your journey to perpetual growth. So Tiffany, welcome. Super excited to have you here today.
I'm so excited to be here. You know, I'm always high on life. So yes, let's do it.
I love it. Every time I look forward to getting on calls with you in any context. I'm like, you know what? I know that my energy level, my vibration is going to be that much higher after I talk to Tiffany. You're just like radiant. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I want people to leave encouraged, inspired, or like new seeds planted anytime I meet anybody. It's like, I have that. That's a gift I've been given. And so I am obligated to share it, and I can't wait to share it.
I love that mindset. I mean, I know that you've personally introduced me to investment ideas and strategies that I didn't even know were a thing. And those are some of the things that I'm super excited to dive into today. So if you would, for our listeners, just give them a little bit of your background, your story history. You know, where did you start in business? What education did you have that preceded that, if anything? Was it the school of self-education like myself, or actual that thing that, you know, the people go to, the colleges and stuff? Like what did that history look like? What were some of the challenges, the milestones, you know, the turning points that took you from where you are to what you are doing today, and that allowed you to afford and create the successes that you're now experiencing?
That was a great question. My favorite part of being able to answer that is telling you the entire story. Some people are like, Tiff, why do you have a space shuttle picture in the background if you're this real estate investor? That is the origin of my, not my superhero story. So here I am, this super analytical, driven, outgoing, motivated kid saying like, I want to do something. I want to do something. And it was a college or a high school teacher of mine that said, hey, you know, you could go to this university if you just apply, because it sounds like you really want to go to space someday. I'm like, yeah, how do you know? I've always wanted to be an astronaut. Well, he said, go to this college, apply a year, and here's how you get in. That is what started me in the journey of showing up to my university where I went in Florida. This is the actual poster that was stapled to my wall, staple marks and all, because I want to be an astronaut. That's my degree, aerospace engineering. No joke.
So
2 years into my degree, I'm facing the hardest physics class I've ever taken in my life. And I'm like rethinking everything. Like, how am I going to make this? I have met the consensus of the population of my entire university, and I am way too bubbly to be behind a desk as an engineer with some of these pilots, these people, some of the most accomplished, successful, smart people I've ever met in my life who are diligent. And I'm like, there's got to be a different way for me. I dropped out of college, and I am here to tell you that it's okay that you drop out of college. Some of the coolest people I've ever met barely had a wink of schooling. And I'm rereading Think and Grow Rich right now. And it was like, you know, Henry Ford only had a couple of months of even high school. I'm like,
yeah.
So in that, I dropped out of college. What do? Well, I got a job. I went from job to job to job. And I landed myself, I had a job at the Orlando airport where I was greeting people because I'm bubbly, right? Let's do this. But late one night before my like 4 a.m. shift, I saw an infomercial for one of these like flipping house seminars. And I thought, oh my gosh, let's go. Let's do it. I'm in. I go. And they're like, by the way, it's for $4,000 to go. I'm like, I dropped out of school. I work at the airport. I don't have $4,000. A couple weeks later, the guy that was selling the event walked through my lane and was like, you know, the Spider-Man meme, I know you. How do I know you? He said, I don't know what it is, but I need to offer you a job. And I got to start working for the guy that was teaching people how to flip houses, little known guru named Robert Allen. Back in the day, nothing down in the 80s. And there were multiple brands where I actually became 100% immersed in week in and week out these thought processes of motivation and you can do it. And not only that, you could do no wrong in 2005 in Florida, 2006. So it was like I could write offers, sell a house the very next day, and then the crash happened. It's like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? I don't know. Take a breather, take a moment. No, you hire a mentor and you figure out like, what am I doing wrong? I can no longer do single family. Let's do multifamily. I bought my first fourplex back at home, moved back to California. And that was like, oh my gosh, I just did that. I just bought a fourplex. I'm a dropout. I just like had a regular job. I was consulting these people, but I was constantly surrounding myself with these visionaries, these mentors, these people that were challenging my belief system of I can't, I don't know how, I'm not educated. No, they were like the coaches that you would hands down have someone at your side to make a better decision. And instead of buying a single family, I bought a multifamily. Instead of closing it like this, I got money back at closing. I got just all these little pieces that started to fall into place, allowed me to have my first few deals happen. And then you have that confidence now of I can do this. And the people behind you of saying you can do this, even though everybody's freaking out in 2007, 8, 9. The world is on fire. No real estate's going to be worth anything. You were sweeping up in California. You could buy fourplexes for 200 grand. In that, I never stopped becoming almost what you would call a seminar junkie. I would go to them and I would buy a thing and I would learn a nugget and I would like, how can I apply this? And occasionally you really do become a seminar junkie. I've been to them all. I've even taught a lot of them, but I've also had to say, Tiff, I am going an inch deep and a mile long when I need to really commit to something and go a mile deep and stop spreading myself thin. And real estate was the way. The book, The Outliers, talks about how you reach your 10,000 hours of something that you naturally just do and do and do. You become like a resident expert in it. And my comfort zone right now is real estate. And so I thought, man, I'm years into this. I'm doing it day in and day out. I teach it to students. I'm living it. I'm a landlord. I flip properties. I've done tax liens and deeds and short sales back when it was awful. And I got hired as a consultant to come out. This is, I think, coming up on 9 years ago now. The other person in the back of the room was like, hey, what do you do for a living? I'm like, I'm the expert in the back of the room. There's a speaker in the front of the room. And I said, well, what are you doing here? And he's like, I flip notes. And I said, I don't even know what you're talking about. And I said, I thought I knew what I wanted to be when I grew up already, right? And he said, I bet you are a tired landlord. Excuse me. I didn't even know what he meant, but I was like justifying the process of when landlord problems arise. They're like, it's okay. It's the cash flow. This is a part of the story. This is it. And he said, do you know that you could make more with less effort and energy and not have a tenant ever again? Tell me more. I'm listening. I'm interested. And it was then this process unfolded of me shifting again and again my paradigm of what I thought I wanted to be. When someone says, I want to be a real estate investor, they think, oh, I need to Airbnb. I need a landlord. I need to create a rental. I need to do something. They've invented all this stuff up from a TV show or a book they read and have no idea that there is this gold mine sitting below them of less effort, of a better return, and they can just own the paper. And I cannot stop talking about it with people. You've heard many conversations from me, and I feel compelled now to share with the world what I've discovered, what was this knowledge that got imparted to me, and how can I make the world understand that you could do this and be your investor, but just level up and start now instead of waiting how many years I waited to say, oh, if I just do a rental, then I'll level up. If I just do a flip, I'll level up. Like, no, you can start today with little to no money and own a note. Or you could take your retirement money. You can roll it and self-direct it. You can,
and lower risk.
Lower risk, right?
Not to mention with all the headaches and you're not having to play general contractor or hire general contractors and deal with all the headaches that those things entail. I mean, that's amazing. So what I want to do is take a step back and make sure that the audience like you really understands fundamentally what some of these tools, investment strategies are. I think I would assume most people are familiar with what short sales are at this stage. Although I would love to have you just give a short explanation on it. But I'd also love to have you talk a little bit about your time investing in tax liens and deeds, what attracted you to it, but again, what ultimately brought you to what you're doing today, and talk a little bit more about what it means to somebody to buy a note, because I think we've been conditioned to believe that it's only the big banks that can play this game. So most people don't ever ask the question, is there another way? So if you would just expand on um, what some of those different investment strategies are, what were some of the highlights, the things that you liked and didn't like, at least for you. It's a personal thing, right?
Yeah.
We can be successful at anything we commit to. And then ultimately, what brought you to this particular investment strategy and notes, and what does it look like, and how do people get started, and all those good things. I'll come back to that.
Sure, sure. That introductory version of saying, man, I want to be a real estate investor. What does that look like? You might find yourself on YouTube University or Dr. Google or whatever that looks like. And it's going to suggest maybe a little baby gateway drug, a little entry version of saying, what's nice and secure, what's low risk? Well, now that you're listening to this podcast, your Google is listening and it's going to have an ad pop up at some point. But there are multiple companies out there, even friends of mine, that have invented programs. And
Mhm.
you could say, hey, I want to go to the county courthouse or go online, and you could buy someone's missed taxes. So if you don't pay
Mhm.
your taxes, the county still needs that money. And the county is saying, hey, we would be willing to pay you what the late fee is if you give us the money, because they still need to operate. And
Mhm.
what happens is, oh my gosh, it's a cute little sexy investment, right? I can go spend $500 of my money and I can get 18% return in whatever named county in New Jersey or Florida. And then when they pay their taxes back, boom, I get my money back plus my 18%.
Mhm.
The underlying problem of this is your money sits out there for sometimes 2, 3, 4 years for you to wait for it to come back. But where's the leverage in that? Whenever you're going to go give somebody $1,000 and you get 18%, are you going to get rich off of just a couple of $1,000s of these notes at a time? No,
Mhm.
it's not a big game changer. It is a very low risk manner for you to park some money that you absolutely don't need to touch for years. The chances of you getting into this type of investing to come into the property are very low, and
Mhm.
there's a lot of competition out there for it. So I find myself wanting more bang for my buck. I'm not downplaying at all because I've done them. I've owned
Mhm.
tax liens and deeds, and it's just not enough oomph for how much effort and energy you have to put into it. So what do? You level up. Okay, great.
Mhm.
I'd like to go by the definition of a short sale, right? With if
Yeah.
someone has a mortgage that they owe their bank $100,000, and maybe when the property they lent out too high and the property's now worth less than what the mortgage is worth, the bank can short the amount that they owe and sell the mortgage for less, maybe to an investor. And so this was happening a lot when properties went really high in value and then the market fell, and then they could no longer afford their mortgage when they were doing adjustable rates. And so the banks were saying, hey, we'll let you sell your house for less than what you owe, because they were negotiating with the actual homeowner.
Mhm. How
This
did you
leads
get
into a
involved in that aspect of it? So there's two things that before we move into topic three, the actual notes. Where does the average person get involved in short sales?
it's less often to find currently, because we're
Uh,
looking at someone that
right.
owes more than what their property is worth. And
Hmm.
banks are, since the 2008 debacle,
Hmm.
there have been laws and rules that have been enacted, quite frankly, the Dodd-Frank, and it's saying, hey, you have this type of lending requirement. And it got
Hmm.
really strict for a while. It's loosened up a little bit more, but they're saying, hey, you can't just fog a mirror anymore to get a loan at 100%. They were giving loans out in Florida 105% of value because you could do no wrong. Every house was going up every single day in value. I could literally write an offer on a property and sell it the next day for 5 grand more and still make money on the deal. That's just not
That's
happening
crazy.
anymore.
Yeah.
People need to put at least 5% down. Even the VA loans, they might be 2% down, but they're making sure the numbers work out so that nobody's really getting in trouble. So it's not the
Well,
space.
and then you're paying PMI and stuff if you're not putting, what is it, at least
Yeah.
20% down. And yeah. So, um, one thing I'm curious about with liens and deeds. It was something that, as you know, I was just introduced to in the last year or so, and I'm like, man, why do more people not know about this? And one interesting thing that I want to point out too is anybody I know that successfully invests in liens and deeds, it's not the only thing they're doing. So oftentimes, if they are using as the component of their long-term strategy when they do acquire a property, they might rehab and flip the property. They might turn it into a rental. They might find the bare property and then build a now rental property. I mean, it's a piece of the overall strategy. And the one thing that I've always wondered is now you've got more experts that are teaching these strategies, and there are a lot of different liens and deeds that become available over the year. And one thing that people should be aware of is, you have different rules from state to state, from county to county, different places where they publish the liens and deeds, different timelines, redemption periods, the interest rates, the penalties. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and you have to be well educated, because that's where you're likely to make a stupid decision, is when you don't know what you don't know. But the main question I'm curious about is, for the longest time, I know, because of all those complexities, a lot of the big institutional investors were avoiding that area. But it seems to me like I'm hearing more and more about large, either institutional or even foreign investors now coming in and driving up those market values. So it's gotten more competitive for the average average investor. What are your kind of thoughts and perspective on that?
It's going to be regulation, manpower is going to decide how and what somebody's willing to dig to find out and worth the reward in the from the effort.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're like, oh man, I want to go spend $1 million tomorrow on liens and deeds. Well, it could be one property. It could be half a property, or that could be 1,000 notes at $50 a pop, right? And by golly, it might be a little easement of land and you didn't do your homework and now you're stuck with it. So that's where it comes into the return versus the yield and the ratio. And quite often, there are going to be many moments in your life where you're going to just want to pay somebody who's invented something up that can track all of this. And there are so many out there. You and I both know a handful of experts. They have their own coaching programs and so forth. And if you're willing to put the time, effort, and energy, and you want something ultra conservative, you don't mind, you're going to wait and sit on it forever, by all means, you could go do that. If you want to, until I tell you what else you could do with that. It's really like, what are you drawn to? What's your comfort zone? And my favorite thing, of course, not being someone that's giving financial advice, right? I'm not the financial advisor that's giving advice today. What is your risk tolerance? Are you so low risk that you're worried about even putting it in your savings account and you've got it under your mattress? Well, to get me to graduate something, it might be a tax lien next. Or if you're like, well, maybe I put it in the CD, or maybe I put it in the stock market, your tolerance of what is growing and what the world is telling you to do could be actually based on generationally what your family has done, or what maybe you were taught in school, or who are you rubbing shoulders with? If everybody's putting money into their 401k, that could be where your comfort level is. That was one of the first things I told my husband when we got married. He's like, I'm rolling your 401k. We're not going to do this. There is no pension. Pull it out. We're going to move it into something else. It's going to get a stronger return that's less risk. And by golly, he was like, wow, I didn't even know this was a thing. Well, nobody's out there educating. And the people that are out there educating, they're charging a little bit, just enough in some of your time, or they're charging a lot. And it's not really worth the return on it. So it's like, how much do you need to know? What is your risk tolerance? And that's one of my favorite things to be able to do, is sometimes just be, from the knowledge that I have in the world of 19 years of being a seminar junkie, I have a lot of knowledge and I'm willing to give that out as like a neutral third party, but it is biased on what it is that I believe in that someone should get into. So it's like, if you have this much money, you could do this. Or if you have no money whatsoever, let me show you how to do something with nothing. So I've been there, done it all. And it's just a matter of, what's that tolerance for you? What do you?
Yeah. So the bias is partly driven by experience. I mean, you know what works, what doesn't, what's easier to do, what's most likely to generate higher returns, which of course we all want to maximize the returns. And one of the most fundamental laws in investing is, well, as Warren Buffett would say, never lose money. But second to that, diversify your different asset classes so that we're not putting all of our eggs in one basket. So there's those aspects of it. And then, like you said, too, it's also largely dependent on the person, the thing that they find interesting. Because if you like to do that thing, then yeah, put your interest in where you're most likely to invest. And the reality with liens and deeds is it does take a lot of research. And then you've potentially got to wait for the time for them to come up to auction, depending on how they are housed and utilized. You might have over the counter, which isn't actually the technical term and will vary from state to state, county to county. But the main point is you've got to know where you're investing, what stage in the game you are at is what I'm taking away from you, because maybe somebody that's at or nearing retirement is going to look at things more conservatively than somebody that's in their 20s, 30s, or 40s. And how much time do you have to really put into it? So, because you've got to know all of the intricacies of making those investments. But one of the things that I'm excited to hear you talk about is investing in notes, because it just seems so simple. I mean, when you introduced the idea to me, I was like, this is brilliant. I mean, why is everybody not doing this? Because it is so simple. It's so easy and straightforward. The numbers, okay, I'm not going to take away from it. Would you just introduce the whole concept and how people can get involved, and maybe some of the challenges that they need to be mindful and aware of, and also what some of the benefits and opportunities are?
Absolutely. This is one of the favorite things that I got to do with people is when I got introduced to someone that's a referral, or I met on a networking meeting, whatever it is. They're like, you do what? Can I take some time with you? I would pour hours and hours trying to describe these concepts with people, which I love to do. And eventually I thought, oh my gosh, there's a better way to use my time to make this go by quicker. So what we did was we invented some videos that are on our YouTube. So at Aspen Sage Fund, it's like, what's the difference between a note and a rental? What's the difference between, or what really is a note, which is something that everybody understands is very common. But whenever we break it down to its just bare description of it, it's a agreement or a payment for a certain amount of time for something that has a security against it, whether it be you as a human or a truck. You buy a truck and you got a car note. That's a note, right?
Hmm.
Did you even know whenever you get your checkbook out, which everybody has a checkbook, you're
Yeah.
writing an actual note. I promise to pay you, and you take this to the bank. It's an actual check. It's a check. It's a note. And so when you get your mortgage, depending on which county and state, normally you've got this agreement that's the first lien position against your property, and you have an agreed number of payments, an interest rate, a default, a charge, and you are going to pay that more than likely for 30 years. Now, the banks don't, they're not in the business to own property.
Mhm.
They're in the business to own paper.
Mhm.
That's why all the banks have all the biggest buildings in every downtown and not all the land. They're just in charge of this paperwork.
Mhm.
And it's just as simple as ever hearing the concept, or you personally being affected by getting a letter in the mail that says, hey, don't pay your payment to Bank of America. Go ahead and make your payment to Chase. And if you haven't had that personally happen to you, you know someone that's like, my loan got bought. What does that mean? Well, back in the day, really, that's how it happened. Like the trillionaires sold to the trillionaires, the billionaires sold to the billionaires, and now we're getting into the millionaires and the hedge funds that are buying or even originating these mortgages. And they have these bulk packages that if you weren't in the good old boy club, you didn't have a seat at the table, you were not privy to this information. You had no idea this industry existed. And I had no idea this industry existed until one person told me. Then I figured out there was a little bit of very hard to find couple of YouTube videos on it. It's extremely difficult to Google something with such a vague term. How do you
Mhm.
say, how do I buy a note? What is a note? Well, by golly, that could mean anything. What do you mean,
Yeah.
like a post-it note? So you have to be like so clear. By the time you get into all these keychain term to even find this information on YouTube or find an expert that's willing to give it out, they're charging more for it. And what I want to do is tell more people about how this space works without them having to go pay 50 grand to learn how to do it. Because maybe you only have 50 grand to go spend and you would love to get 8, 10, 12, 16% yield on your money instead of going to spend 50 grand and maybe like, oh, maybe I don't want to do notes anymore type of a thing. If you had no idea that that's what this space is called, it's the note buying business. And the fun part about the note buying business is that you're never buying this note at par,
Mhm.
meaning cute little house in Ohio, maybe it's worth 150 grand. They've paid some years on it. They owe their bank $100,000. If I had access to go buy that note for $100,000, it's not for sale to me for $100,000. it's for sale to me for maybe $70,000 or $80,000. I can buy it at a discount because they've got 20 more years of payments. And if you plug these numbers, these financial numbers into a calculator, a financial calculator, a 10B II or a 12C HP calculator, it's going to say, hey, today's value of this note is this. And we can base this entire industry off that money is worth less over time. And that time value of money formula is going to determine how much of a risk I want to take on to buy 20 more years of someone's payment, because it's not worth 100 grand today. It's worth less today.
Is one of the reasons that the bank does this because the interest is front loaded? Like, if I'm not mistaken, you pay the majority of your interest in the first 10 years of the note, and then the principal to interest balance starts to shift where over time you're paying more and more principal. So is that why? And I'm going to speculate that it's probably somewhere around actually, it's not even around the 10-year mark. I mean, we've been in this house for 3 years, and I literally just got one of those notes in the mail yesterday. So is that the major incentive for the bank? Is they're collecting all this monumental interest up front, and now they're saying, hey, we can offload this, quote unquote liability to somebody else and still come out ahead? Is that why they're doing it? Because I think that's something that's important for people to understand, is why would banks do this, so that they can understand why it's advantageous for them to still get in and reap the rewards from it.
That's a great question. The important thing for you to understand is any reason that you can conjure up to say, why would a bank do this, is an accurate answer. Because there is sometimes no rhyme or reason whatsoever, but sometimes some extra rich guy is like, I don't want that portfolio anymore, get rid of it. They'll take it as a loss and they don't care. Also, some banks don't want to be known for putting their people who had a loan with them into foreclosure. So they will just hang on to a note for the appropriate amount of time for them to say, oh, that was a good write-off, and they'll sell it off and then let you buy it and either fix their loan up or put them into foreclosure. That's a whole nother can of worms that I totally just cracked into. But
I was going to say, this is really important too. Yeah.
In all of this, it's anything that you could think up is a reason why. And I believe one of the fun reasons why is knowing, oh my gosh, the banks do get all this front-loaded, amortized interest, and they've gotten a big chunk of that money. I looked at one of the mortgage payments that we were making on a property, and we were 10 years into it. And it was like, we've only paid off 20 grand of the 100, and we're a third of the way through our mortgage, and we still owe them so much on this property. It's like, what happened? How come we didn't?
I don't understand how that's legal. That just seems like I've always questioned that practice and how that, but it doesn't matter. It's the way that the things operate. So there's one thing that I find interesting in that, well, multiple things I find interesting in this, but in comparison to tax liens and deeds, just so people are aware, I mean, oftentimes you're waiting, or I guess in all times, you're waiting for something to go into default. They haven't paid their taxes. And in this particular instance, you're buying the note from somebody that's still active. And one of the beneficial outcomes with either of the strategies is there's the potential that if somebody does not pay back the lien or the deed that you acquired, that you could potentially acquire the deed to the property. But that happens a very, very small percentage of the time. And there's a lot more research and things that have to go in on the front end. Whereas with investing in a note, you're basically acquiring a loan that somebody is already paying at a discount. And now you are the bank receiving all of the interest on it. So either long-term game, you're getting all the interest. And I would presume too, you now have another asset that becomes something that you can leverage, which I hadn't really thought about here in the moment. And then in addition, if they do default on the note, just like a bank, you can foreclose and now you own the property. So, which now creates a number of different things that you could use it for as an investment strategy, being rental, flip, sell, wholesale, whatever. Talk a little bit about that.
There's so many things we could crack into. A good question that I get asked a lot is, okay, so Tiff, let's put myself in the picture. I want to buy this note. They owe 100 grand and I bought it for 70. What happens when stuff goes wrong? What's going to go wrong? Well, let me just tell you, we bought that cute little house and it was a rent and it was in Ohio. Fill up this notebook with how many things go wrong. The window could break, a tree could fall on it. The tenant is awful, right? Thousands of pages of things that could possibly go wrong with this property. Whereas if I am just in control of the paper, what could go wrong? Well, maybe they stop paying. I am not mad if they stop paying. You know why? Because I bought the loan at a discount and I can turn around and sell that. Or if I hire the appropriate person, which is another favorite thing that I absolutely love, we don't have property management in the note space. We have companies that are debt servicing companies. So instead of you paying 9 to 12% for a property to be managed with headaches and tenants and fees and vacancy and all the above, we pay $20 to have each and every single note managed for us. And what does that mean? You stay compliant and they just ACH the money straight into your bank account after they pay. Now, do you think you're ever going to get a phone call like, oh, like I used to get, Miss Tiffany, my air conditioner don't work? No. When you have a problem with your property, you don't call your bank to complain. You call a repairman. It is not my property. I have the rights to it if I need to take rights to it because I have a lien against the property. So I want to make sure my collateral is doing what it's doing, but it's not my house. I'm not going to take care of it. So what could go wrong? Oh, I get somehow even more excited if something could go wrong in it because I actually make more money whenever the market gets weird or they stop paying because I just get the house for the price that they've now paid down for so long. I bought even less than what they owe from their bank. And it's only a few $1,000s to do the entire process to foreclose on it usually. Could be a few more $1,000s, but it's very low to consider what are my wrongs that could happen. Because even if the place burnt down, we have insurance. And you are the person that is written into the insurance policy that the bank gets the money. You pay homeowners insurance for the bank. Because
I don't know how anybody could be listening and be like, why would I ever be a landlord again? I mean, you know, my saga as a landlord. I just finally off one of my nightmare properties. I was like, but yeah, there's no part of being a landlord that's fun. And then thinking about losing 7, 8, 10, 12% to a company to manage it, which kind of alleviates the headache, but just dramatically encroaches on all of your earnings. It just doesn't make any sense. If I could not have to deal with those headaches, earn a guaranteed interest rate, and then in a worst case scenario, if you want to put it that way, potentially walk away with the house. I mean, it's like win, win, win. So if somebody's interested in getting started, you know, what do they need to know? I mean, first, we'll give you the opportunity at the end too, so they know how to get in touch with you because you are the expert of experts. And as people can probably tell from this conversation, they will thoroughly enjoy chatting with you. But if they want to get started, what is there a minimum amount they need to have on hand? Is there typical, areas geographically that you guys are purchasing the notes more? Is it something that they want to consider? Like, do they want to say, hey, I should be buying this in Florida because I would be happy if I got a house in Florida? What are some of the considerations they need to have when they're looking at investing in these notes?
That's a great question. To consider what you need to know before you jump into this is who you know. So if you are listening to this, you just send Zach a message and you say, hey, I want to get to know Tiff. You know me. We're friends now, right? Because you have to know a guy. When I say I spent years and years and years getting to know people that spent years and years and years to get a seat at the good old boys club, that's exactly what had to happen. I need to network myself. I need to ask a million questions. You need to be fulfilling what it is. If I say I want to buy something, I wire the money. If you back out, you're blacklisted in this community. It's like you don't follow through with what it is that you just said. So we're very carefully trying to decide who is good people in this space. So when you get a name for yourself and you fulfill and you follow through and you do exactly what it is that you say and you want to bring some people in and your umbrella, we're still testing the waters with you just to make sure, because the assets don't appear on a website. The assets are not on Amazon. They're not on eBay. They're not anywhere that you are going to find them. I get an Excel document from someone through someone that's from a very large hedge fund, and they're all very very nil. We all sign non-disclosures. And if you want a deal, it's going to be from someone in the space. It's not going to be just listed on a website. Now, I plan to change that. I am secretly working on acquiring a number of assets that I would love to host and allow people to have, like an Amazon, to be able to come to me. But in the meantime, that's not been invented yet. And the ones that are out there, they're not like a grocery store. It's more of like an Amazon, or sorry, like a Craigslist. Like you could buy a broken lawn chair on there, but is it a good deal? So you just never know. And it's someone to someone. So it's like a peer-to-peer transaction versus like someone that owns everything, has vetted it, and has allowed you to say, hey, come buy the assets from me. There have been a few, but they don't operate anymore for a lot of different various reasons. It's expensive to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're greedy in this, you're just not going to make it very long because you're trying to keep all the money for yourself when what I want to do, we're set up. I just want to help everybody else understand that you could have these assets too. And so some of what you're going to want to ask questions on deciding if this is the right space for you, what your risk tolerance is, where should I go next, what should I buy, how much do I need? The conversation is different every single day. Tomorrow it could be like, man, I found this killer deal for 20 grand, you should get it. Or tomorrow, the next day, it could be, I need 150 grand for this cute little house here, and here's what the numbers and here's what it looks like. Well, also, I can't look into the future and decide if this note is going to perform perfectly for the rest of its little life. We're basing on the past history to decide what we think the likelihood of the note is going to continue to do. So could something go wrong? Yes. That's why we hedge ourselves. Oh man, we bought it at a discount to decide that if it were to go wrong, what would that end up being? Now, if you talk to me and you say, Tiffany, what do you prefer? What do you suggest? What do you like? Well, it also depends on risk. So I say, hey, if you don't want to wait around forever for your money, if they stop paying, well, then I would avoid states like Florida and New York and New Jersey because it takes sometimes 4 to 7 years to foreclose on somebody properly through a judicial state to get your money back. So if your portfolio can absorb something like that,
Mm-hmm.
I love it for you. I'm so proud of you that you're at a spot now where you're like, I don't need that money back for this many years, but you could have a stronger rate of return. Now, if you just want to get into a state that is more fruitful for filing foreclosure because you want to buy something that if it goes wrong, well, then we look at states that have less of a judicial process. They call it non-judicial, or states that have a faster turnaround time for what foreclosure takes. Meanwhile, not to panic whatsoever, because I nor you are ever going to do this yourself. You're going to have your servicing company for $20 a month do all of this paperwork for you and help you pick out the right attorney, the right place, the right time, and the right whatever for a couple of fees along the way. So you're not having to really do any of this yourself. So you are going to be directed every step of the way. Even if you blindly went into a deal that somehow somebody gave you in a back alley, you would be okay. The important part is to know, let's help you find assets that are coming week in and week out that are available, what it is that you want to spend, how long you need your money to be coming back to you. And then worst case scenario, if you're like, oh my gosh, my life suddenly changed. I don't want to own this note anymore that I'm rightfully owed 20 more years of payments. Well, that's when you know a guy, you know me. Well, let me buy it back from you. I'll give it to someone else in my portfolio that wants that asset and we can liquidate you.
So that's cool. So there is an exit strategy, which makes it even better. Because that was one of the questions coming to my mind I'm going to have to wrap up pretty quick. But the one thing, there are several, I have like so many different tangents I want to go down right now, but I'm thinking about my dad. I'm thinking about my dad. They're pushing 80, he and my mom. They have this beautiful duplex up in Washington State, and it's beautiful, but it's freaking old, right? But it's a prime location. It's worth a healthy chunk of change at this state, but it's also a headache. As we know, you have renters and it's an old property, so there's constant problems. For somebody that's at retirement age, you partly answered the question, like if there is an exit strategy, if they want to sell off those loans and cash out, that's great. But otherwise, they could have predictable recurrent income coming in from the interest earned. What happens if somebody passes as the owner of the note? Is it then important? Are you going to recommend that they're speaking with somebody and at the very least having uh, not oh shoot, well, a will, or ideally like a trust so that it goes to the right person net? Like, how does that work if somebody passes in the process, and what do they need to do to protect themselves?
Oh, there's so many angles of this, and I love answering good questions like this because let's pretend that the homeowner passes first. Well, what would you do? Well, you still own the note, and the trust and the probate would all wind itself out, and you would still either get paid out, or if they just cannot figure it all out, you file foreclosure and you keep the house.
Hmm.
On the same but different angle of that, if anybody that owns property that's like, gosh, I love this cash flow, but I really just want to own a note. You are talking to one of the ladies that's a creative finance person, meaning like that's the genius zone. How about you take that rental and you sell it on a note, you allow them to become the bank and you separate that distance from them now being a landlord to them being the bank for the property with probably better cash flow, probably better returns. And then if the note were to go and like, well, they don't need the note anymore, we sell the note. So there's creative financing methods to be able to get them from stop being a landlord, which is what one of the very first people that got me into the space was like, oh man, you look like a tired landlord. Why don't you just want to create the cash flow and get that instead of having to deal with the problems of your tenants? What?
Yeah.
I mean, I can get the cash flow from that. Now, on the other side, whatever it is you own, any assets that you have, by all means, you're going to want to put into a company or to a trust. You're going to want to talk to somebody that's a major professional, not just
Mhm.
trying to sell you another LLC or another trust or another thing. There are very simple, minimalist ways that you can get for a few $1,000s the absolute level of structure created. So that way it's revocable, it's irrevocable, it's protected from the government.
You know,
We
you just
have
made me realize that's the next guest I got to bring on. I know a guy.
yes,
To your
yes, like
point, it's who you
just
know, right?
it totally is because it's like who are you going to call to make this happen? Is it going to be like, well, I'm going to stick it to this guy for all the fees I could charge them? No, I'm
Yeah.
not going to have you open 19 LLCs to make it happen. No, there's a balance to the world, a
Hmm.
balance to your investing. There's a
Hmm.
balance to the advice you're going to get and what you need to do into your portfolio. Meaning,
Hmm.
I don't even think 100% of what you should do will be all low risk. I think you should have some medium and maybe some
Hmm.
higher than medium, but dare
Hmm.
I say high risk.
Hmm.
In that, I do a little bit of Bitcoin. I
Hmm.
had some rental property. We do notes. We have stuff sitting in a savings account, right? We
Hmm. Hmm.
have a variety of things. And if you are understanding right now, like, oh my gosh, I could be doing a greater return of interest or yield to myself at the same or lower amount of risk than what I have it in right now. This is the mind blowing conversation that I have with people a lot is like, don't go different, just go parallel. Like, let's
Yeah.
get a stronger rate of return just a little bit this way, not like trying to trade Bitcoin tomorrow, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
I don't want you to take on that much risk because you could lose it all, right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
yeah, it's just knowing if you know somebody and you know the right person and you can have that honest conversation with them of here's where I'm at, what should I do? And there are quite often people that I talk to that are like, well, I'm not in a spot, but I'm glad I know you because I know that I'm a trusted person that's not trying to sell me something to get
Hmm.
me into it. I don't have education I'm trying to sell. I
Hmm.
really just want to plant seeds with some of the people that I look up to, like Alex Hermosi. Just give away all the information you know, and the bright people are going to come to you anyway. Or if
Hmm.
you some advice to help you leverage up or level up your financing or your business or something. Between Zach and I, we know a guy. Like we'll
Yeah.
get you to somebody to help you make greater impact on your business. So that way you have more money that you can come invest with.
Well, Tiff, I love your passion and enthusiasm and just general person. Like you have the that magnetic personality. And I want to thank you so much. Thank everybody for spending your time with us on the Perpetual Growth Podcast today. Tiffany, huge shout out for bringing so much value. Again, it's Tiffany Alexander, if you don't remember from the introduction at the beginning. Tiff, where can our listeners connect with you or learn more about what you're working on if they want to learn more about investing in notes or your funds or just some of the other amazing things that you have going on today?
I love it. You would go right to our YouTube page. It's ampersand, the at sign
Mhm.
Aspen Sage Fund. That's our handle. And you can go right to aspensagefund.com. And I even have a calendar link on there that you can book a free 30-minute time with me so that I can just pour into you. How can I help you? What do you need to know? How can I be maybe a neutral third party? Because we're only accepting accredited investors into our fund right now. So if you're thinking, I love what you're saying, will you just do it for me? Yes, I can do
Mhm.
that. But if you love
Mhm.
what I'm saying and I can just say, hey, here's a note, here's the deal, I'd love to give that to you too. And if I'm not the right person, by all means, I'll direct you to the next person that you need to get to know for what it is that you're doing. So you can follow us on LinkedIn, myself, Tiffany Alexander. Get us on our YouTube page. You can even follow my Instagram. I like to tell fun stories on there. And that's Tiff's Investing. And yeah, just come say hi.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we'll make sure that we have all of those links posted in the show notes so nobody has any trouble finding you. Now, if this episode sparks something for you, don't keep it to yourself. Make sure to share it, subscribe, leave a 5-star review to help us reach even more people on their growth journey. And remember, growth doesn't happen by chance, it happens by choice. We'll see you next time. Thanks again for coming, Tiff.